Good evening, traders. It is Samurai Trader here to give you a recap of the NQ in the US. The date is the 24th of the 2nd 2015, and down under in Australia it's early afternoon. It's the 25th, so one day later, of course. So I'm going to be recapping the NQ, as I mentioned, 133. We had fairly thin volume. There's a lot of red flags coming out tomorrow in the US, hence that's had a very big impact on our volume. However, as you're about to see, there's been some fantastic trade setups. One of the commitments I've made to my clients is to publish a minimum of 3 to 4 YouTube videos a week, particularly with trade setups, etc. on them. So if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. For those people watching that are not my coaching clients, so it can be kept up to date. We've got others around the world are charging thousands for my trading strategies and setups. You get them all free. If you want my coaching services, I start at $295 for an hour session, where I also give you all of the setups. You get to watch individual videos of exactly step-by-step how the trade setups work. So it'll give you a major fast track in learning how the setups work. Most of my clients only need 1 to 2 hours, and they're totally away. And of course, then I just provide email services. For my corporate clients, we sit down and talk about individual setups and how we might be able to work with your traders. So let's move right along. Before we get underway, I'd like to talk about a couple of things that happened when I was away. I'm an avid reader, and one of my favorite books of all times is a book by Jack Welch, who was the CEO and probably one of the world's best ever CEOs of GE. And some years ago he published a book called Winning, and let me just quote him. In chapter 2, he has this thing called candor, and most of us have heard of candor. It's about being direct with someone, and he calls it the biggest dirty little secret in business. And he says what a huge problem it is. Well, as a coach, my job is to be direct with my traders in a way where I have empathy, not sympathy, but empathy for where they've been up till now. So my job as your coach, and I'm going to assume that everyone watching this video is a potential client, or that I am your coach, even if I'm not doing it one-on-one because I don't know you personally. So I'm going to be very, very candid with you. Now, to do that, I need you to be open-minded, and they say the sign of an intelligent person is how open they are to new ideas. Well, I'm going to show you something that totally changed my trading life forever, and for over 20 years I've been trading, and this had a massive impact. This reframe, it's a reframing technique. It's an NLP technique, neuro-linguistic programming technique. And don't roll your eyes up and say here we go, because remember, you're an intelligent person, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this recording. This may very well change your trading life forever. So this reframe changed my whole trading style, and it assisted me in greatly stopping my impulse trades and staying disciplined. Not saying that every now and then I still don't have a impulse trade, because I do. I may be in a hurry, or may have not checked my rules, or whatever. The fact is though, I do have very, very few impulse trades now, which has a huge impact on my bottom line. So here's what it is. Become a sniper. When I was away last week, I saw the movie American Sniper. Now it's been out in the US for some time, recently in the movie theaters here in Australia, and it's something I've been doing, but I just for quite some time. But I thought this would be great actually to run through with my traders around the world. Is of course, if we consider a sniper, they know when to take the shot. I deal with traders, and this is where I'm going to be candid with you. I deal with losing traders every single day. Time and time again, they move their stops. They're breaking their trade rules. I mean, I can go through 100 different reasons, and don't get me wrong, I've been guilty of a lot of these issues in my own right in the past. My job as your coach is to be candid with you and to help you become world class, help you become an epic trader, help you become best in world. You see, it's no good saying I want to be a good trader. You will fail. You've got to aim to be one of the world's best, because it's dog eat dog. It's a zero-sum game. If you're not aiming to be world class, if you're not aiming to be an epic trader, you will fail. You will fail unless you're perhaps one of the very rare traders. And out of the hundreds of traders that I've dealt with, it's in the low thousands now. I can tell you now that so many fail because they continually take impulse trades, they move their stops, yada yada yada. So here's something, a reframe that totally changed my trading life, and it's something I actively teach to my trading clients. Now, this particular reframe may not suit your particular style, so what you want to do is find something that really resonates with your trading style, that you feel that would work for you. For me, I was putting myself in the stance or the belief or the or acting as if I'm a sniper. This is a reframe when I sit down to look at the charts. One, very rarely do I take a counter trend trade unless it meets every single one of my rules, and I've got some very high probability counter trend trades that most of you know, but nearly every, probably I want to say nearly everyone, but a good 85% of my trades are trend trades. And so I'm sitting there like a sniper, waiting for the perfect shot, waiting for that trade. You see, if we consider what does it take to be a good sniper, virtually every quality of a great sniper is what makes a great trader: patience, independence, cleverness. You can make decisions on your own, keen observation skills, marksmanship. Well, maybe we're not actually pulling the trigger as in a rifle, but we do have to, of course, execute the trade. Ability to keep learning. Once again, we never stop learning. Now, one thing I'd like to say there, we've got to stop looking for the holy grail, because once again we're going to master 1, 2, or 3 setups maximum and become mastered at those, and you hear me talk about this all the time. So discipline, attention to details. If we consider a fantastic sniper, what do? They study their enemy. In our case, we study our market. You see, as most of us know, virtually every market, whether it be Forex, futures, options, stock, or the individual market within those categories, they have their own personalities. You've got to know your market. You've got to know when to execute your trade. In other words, not too soon. Does it meet each of the rules? If you're a day trader, there's another bus coming, there's another trade just around the corner. Patience is critical. Another important thing is record and data keeping skills. I'm amazed initially when I start working with some of my traders and they admit they're in the wrong where they're not keeping a daily journal. I probably have about 30 of them sitting here now, where every single day I'll write down every trade, why I took it, what I liked about it, if I made a mistake, or if it used to be an impulse. As I said, I very rarely do them now, but if I do, where I stuffed up, what would I do differently, and the amount of information or intelligence I gain from going back over them is absolutely incredible. So what I want you to do, if being a sniper does not suit you, and it suits most of my clients, because that is what we really are, we're waiting for the setup, we're sitting there patiently. So if this resonates with you, what I want you to do is to Google what it takes to be a great sniper. I'm probably in the next week or so, I'm actually going to do a training session, a psychology session. I'm going to be talking a lot more about this. The session will go about an hour. It'll be on YouTube in the next week or so. So, because it really comes back to this: we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. Becoming an outstanding trader is a habit. It truly is. Now, to become a successful trader, there are, yes, in the institutions, they have university degrees, but what it really takes is determination, persistence, and most of all discipline and patience. And another big thing I'd like to talk about very quickly before we move on to the charts is competence. Now, by the way, if you're considering jumping off this video now because it's going too long and I'm talking about these things, don't. You need to hear this. I'm being candid with you. You've got to know about this. Not only do you want confidence as a trader, but you want competence. That is, you've got to earn the right to be a trader. In going from the simulator to trading real time, a long-term lifelong career, what you've got to really do, you've got to earn the right to go live. Competence, if you look it up, it's the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. So what's absolutely critical is that you gain competence, just not confidence. So how do we get our competence? Screen time, that is watching, study, keeping a trade in R&D, research and development journal, following your trading plan, discipline, and as a bare minimum executing 100 trades on your simulator without breaking your trading rules. Now, yes, some of the greatest books, if you go and take for an example John Carter and his book, highly recommended, called Mastering the Trade. You've got, of course, Mark Douglas, the disciplined trader. In some cases I'll talk about that simulators are really useless in many ways. They are, because if you use a simulator and you think, great, okay, I'm ready to go live, I'm making all this money, a lot of people, once they start with raw cash, it's a total different psychological point of view. But the thing where a simulator is useful and critical in your early development is making sure that you haven't developed the bad habits. That is, making sure that you're executing according to your rules. And as all of my clients listening and that are watching today know, I talk about this nearly every day when I deal with them. What was the point I was going to bring up is that with the simulator, if you hardwire habits, it's very hard to break a habit. And if you're not trading correctly with the simulator, as a lot of failed traders that come to me before they try to get back into the business, they say, well, look, it was only the simulator. Well, that's totally wrong, because the simulators, you're hardwiring those habits. And let's not forget the emotional damage that you're doing to yourself. And just think about this. If you're a trader that's maybe blown your account 2 or 3 times now, and you're watching and listening to what I have to say here, consider the psychological damage you may have done. That is, you're of course much more hesitant in executing, you doubt what you're doing, you lack personal confidence. Believe it or not, it's something that I see every day, the damage that does. So don't be foolish, okay? I'm being really blunt here. What I want you to do is to really treat this seriously, traders, because what I show you and what I'm about to go through, for an example, you could have had a killer day today in a fantastic market that was very thinly traded. It was with the red flags coming out tomorrow, there was lower than average volume, but there was still some great trading opportunities. And as most of you know, I'm constantly promoting trend trading. What I want you to do, of course, is trade with the trend. Sorry about that little pause in, trader. Someone was knocking on my office door, wanted to see me. So let's go back and have a look at the open of the market. Now, if we look down at the bottom, these are of course Australian times, very early in the morning. Now, I very rarely will trade this market within the first half an hour because it moves very quickly. There were some opportunities where you may have been able to get in and scalp, but I'm going to focus on perhaps after the market had settled down. So we can see here, this is about 25 minutes in. We had a T1. A T1, of course, is where we have the paint bar. This is also an 89 EMA bounce. So we can see here our 89 bounce right there. So we've got the cyan and we bounced straight off it, and that was 11 ticks. Thank you very much. So I'm after, as most of you know, 11 ticks per trade or longer, unless I've got a good strong trend where we'll trail, and I won't talk about our trailing stops today. But moving along here, now this is a dangerous position to be in because we're right at a pivot, and so I want you to be very careful. We also have our platinum falling away dramatically here, and you actually got your 11 ticks up the top here. but you had another one down here. This is what we call a T2. Now a T2 of course is where, and let me just remove for a moment, just over here, just want to remove the vertical line so we can go here. You can see this better. Now remember, the T2 is a slingshot, so we can see that our long-term stochastic is fully overbought, I should say, my apologies. Our short terms come down and we sling back up. So we had 1-2 slingshots here. Now there you didn't quite get 11 ticks. It was very close. Now ideally you're waiting here for our zero lag, which is here in this particular case, to turn cyan to give us our entry signal. Our experienced traders don't usually wait for that, but the newer traders, I recommend every time, I want you to wait for this to turn cyan. And the reason being, when you're first learning these strategies, 1 or 2 losing trades, which you'll get a couple of extra losing trades when you don't wait for that, can damage where you are psychologically in your early days. So just wait. So experienced guys would have been in there and there, otherwise you're waiting. So here you did not get out till up here. Over here we had a T10. Now a T10, as we can see here, with we're trading with the trend. We've collapsed over. We can see very clearly here I had a T98. That is where we have the zero lag cross through our trigger line there, which usually signals a reversal. We had a very nice reversal. I won't talk about those trades today, but down here let's look at this T10. Now this T10 is where you can see you've got the long-term stochastic is falling dramatically. We've come up and we pull back down, also known as a money on the floor trade. So you've had 1, and I'm just going to count that as 1 right now, but if you are in without the zero lag confirmation, you've had 2 nice winning trades there, and you've just had your 3rd one. Now down here, let's ignore the counter trend. Let's stay with the trend, and I perhaps should not have even put them up today, so I'll get you wanting to know more. But down here we've got the T10. We can see our long-term stochastic is going up. We've pulled down through and up we go, and that delivered just 11 ticks. Then we had a bounce. We can see here that our long-term moving average is falling, our 89. This is almost an 89 bounce, but why I like this one is that you're bouncing off a pivot as well. So your 89 still falling down slightly sideways, and you may or may not have taken that one. Then your trades would have stood aside, because one of the rules we have, by the way, you want to have a very definite angle on your 89. That will keep you out of a lot of losing trades if you just patiently wait. Once again, what are you? You're a sniper. You're waiting for the perfect trade. Well, let me take that back. Very rarely is there anything as the perfect trade. Some of my experienced guys will be looking at me frowning now right now, so I want to take that back. We've got it now, a pivot bounce right here, but let's move on to some of our trending trades here. Okay, now here we had an 89 bounce. We can see here the 89 EMA is going up, but look at our zero lag, and this is what I mean about waiting for the zero lag to turn. So we can see here it's still magenta. That kept you out of that losing trade. Okay, so it kept you right out of that. Now look down here, and there's another reason. So we can see our long-term stoch is coming down. So it's broken down here. What have we got here? Our long-term stochastic is falling, just like this one over here is rising. Our short-term stoch goes up, rolls over. Thank you very much. And you had the T1 signal. So that's a nice trade. Here we've got the same thing again. Oops, let me just turn this off, and we can see here where we've got our long-term stoch going up, kick down, and up we go. Here we've got a T2. Now this particular T2, we can see here that we're overbought, so we would have been in potentially on this candle here. We can see our T1, so you're in slightly. That delivered a very nice easy 11 ticks there. For our experienced traders, you would have been in there. So if you're wondering why I've marked it up, I've marked it up because of a T1 signal. Here we had some divergence. For our divergence traders, we can see a very nice divergence there. Now this is one I'm going to point out and quickly cover with you and explain. Now see here we've had, this is almost a 89 bounce. We haven't quite touched it. Now an 89B is there was, by the way, there were 789 EMA bounces last night. I think there were 6 out of a 7, or the 7 out of 7 all delivered great pips. And the 89 bounces, you'll easily get usually 12 to 15 ticks out of those. So you had one here, but well, almost. Here is a true 89 bounce, and this is why it's a true one. See, you've gone down and very clearly touched and hit the 89 EMA, so you can see very clearly. So we also had a double bottom virtually and a pivot bounce. See that there, you're bouncing off the pivot, and then we had divergence here. Now this is with the trend. Now a T7, for those clients, those people watching this that are not clients, will know a T7 is a double bottom or a double top, slightly lower, but basically it qualifies for us, and we've got clear divergence. So here you've got a double bottom in the direction of the trend. They're bankable every day of the week. You want to take every one of those, and away we go. That delivered a good 12, 15, if not more ticks there. And we had another one here. Now here you actually had a T1 in the direction of the trend. You didn't get into here, but what actually happened was you got stopped on that one. Okay, remember our stop on the NQ 133 is 2 ticks down here. Okay, so we have our stop is 2 ticks below. Now there is an exception there. If I have very large candles, I will not take the trade. I will stand aside. So something I want you to consider is that if you've got big candles, or you're well and truly outside the channel, stand aside. Now for the newer traders, you can look at this and think, gee, this is busy. Yes, there is a lot on here. One of the things we can do here, just to perhaps make it clean, we can remove that one. It clears the chart up. You don't have to have the channel on there, but we use that as a gauge of when to get in, what trades to stay out of. But let's just duck back down here. You had a T1, sorry, you had a T2. See, we're falling. So actually you had a T10 right there. Your stop was 2 ticks above there. You would have got out, and notice you're hitting your pivot. Be very careful, traders, when you're so close to the pivot. You bounce all the time. So when you've got and the experienced traders that I coach, we know that we have a rule that when the 89 EMA is right on the pivot, unless we're trading away, we don't take the trade. We don't, if that's against, if that's resistance, we stand aside, because you'll get these bounces all the time. It's a devil. Here you got stopped. I think it's the first trade today you've been stopped on, but then you had a lovely 89 bounce. You had not the ideal T2. See here, you had a T2 that you were actually stopped on. You know, you're well over, you're you know, it meets all the rules, but you got stopped. That's trading. But then this one here was a beautiful one. Thank you. There, by the way, you wouldn't have been out to about here with your 11 ticks. Let's move right along. And here, the experienced traders know you take these as well. See, we're overbought here, but we've got these pull downs. These are all T2s. We take these. Just have to be extra careful once you start to head towards the pivot. Now I may as well mention this now. I'm going to make this as an extra long video today. Is that time and time again, our experienced traders know you travel from pivot to pivot. You might have some pullbacks. In actual fact, one of our trading strategies is we go up slightly, pull back, and that's a strategy to take the next trade. So once you're getting towards the pivot, you know you're going to have these bounces. So two things. First of all, be very careful. You want to be cautious when your price action or your entry is outside the channel, and secondly, when we come up to these pivots. Here you had one that delivered. Here an 89 bounce. Now let me show you why you would not have taken this as an 89 bounce. And if you've got your pads out, you might want to just roll back and replay what I'm about to say to write this out. Is that you've come through the 89, that's fine, that sometimes happens, the 89, but look down here, look at our long-term stochastic is oversold. We are heading up to set up for a T2, a slingshot. So notice how we're down here. Our long-term stochastic is oversold, and instead we've got a long signal. Now yes, it delivered, and you just scraped in 11 ticks I think it was, but really we don't recommend you take those. All right, why? As a just remember with these, we really wanted to see an opposite reaction on the stochastic. Here, this Medorva rules here. Okay, we had a nice one there. 89, so 89 bounce, 89 bounce again. Standard trade here, T1, beautiful one in the direction of the trend. Notice how our 89 is falling, it's gone short. Our zero lag, our channel here, we've got a T2. Now what the comment I put here is on this session, we put this in when we were doing a training session today, was notice here we're entering some chop. We've come up, our zero lag would have kept our newer traders out. Some of our experienced traders would have taken that, but actually their target would have been to get out quickly for a quick scalp against the pivot, because we know that quite often we're going to bounce off that pivot. So you've got to watch your targets there. But also a comment I put in there at the time was, time is not your friend. No movement within 3 to 5 candles, consider exiting a trade, which is what happened here. Here we had a higher low. We can see our T1 signal. Now what about this trade here? Do we take this T1 because it's in the direction of the 89? Okay, so what's a long-term stochastic? Here it's right up against it. It's just like that trade I showed you before, not to take. Notice how this is a T10 setup. This is the money on the floor setting up here with that coming up. So we can see we've got a higher low. You do not take those trades. Okay, here we had another, that's basically a T2. What have we got here? We've got a higher low again. So this is our second higher low, and away it goes, and way it went. I should excuse my grammar here, English, and away it went. Another comment here, this is a low volume day where you've got to be extra cautious with your trades, of course. Here we had an 89 EMA bounce. Now we're starting to go sideways, which the bell is ringing, alarm bell, so you've got to be very, very cautious. Now here you tick down one tick below the low here. So here remember our stop is how many ticks below the low? 2. So our swing low here, our stop is always 2 ticks below, unless we're trading large candles when we stand aside. So that ticked down 1 tick, so you stayed in that trade, but those that got filled there or there did not get out to here. Okay, so those you may not have even been filled to here. Why? Those that were waiting for the zero leg to confirm the trade, they went out till up here. Then you had a T2 just here. We had a lower low here from this point. So what's happening? The alarm bells are ringing. Now here's another great example of 89 bounces. Now see here, even though you still could have banked this particular trade, but notice how our zero lag is not confirmed, it's not rolling over yet. We've got 1 2 3 on the 5th counter. You could have got in, but here you would have probably been stopped. It's a lower low. It's not a true 89B. Why? Because we haven't touched the 89 EMA. Now I use that as a qualification rule. If you want to be strictly a rules-based trader and black and white, of course the things that you can't control are things like red flag news announcements, things like that, but here you really want to be hitting for it to qualify as an 89, the 89 EMA, and away we went. Then we had some this particular T1. You had a T1 here that delivered, it just scraped in. I think it was 10 ticks, that particular trade just scraped in on the T1 because you weren't in till there. Here it turned into a T2. If you jumped into that T2, you were stopped because that ticked down below 2 ticks. Now this is another example of, notice how far out of the channel we are, but what else is happening? We're hitting the pivot. Here we had a classic T2 or a slingshot trade. Now if you go back and listen to this recording 2 or 3 times, you'll pick these trades up. Our long-term stochastic is overbought. Notice it's pegged. Our short-terms come down and it's flicked up. But of course you should have still been in this particular one here, or if you're concerned about your pivot, you may have waited till here, and that delivered your 11 ticks. You had another one here. Now for our experienced traders that jump in early, they would have probably been in on this trade here. They ticked down 1 tick, got in here either, we would have been in over here, and that just scraped in, by the way, 11 ticks. May have even been 10, I just can't recall exactly. And that's the end of our trading day, because the market here is we don't trade usually the last 15-20 minutes, half an hour. So traders, with trend trades, and you see 90%, 85-90% of my trades are trading with the trend. People constantly ask me what my trading style is. Well, now it's really, you know, I'm a sniper. I'm targeting specific targets, and 85-90% of the time, unless it really meets my rules, I'm going to trade with the trend only. We do have, like, the T98s, we have the T19As that are highly accurate counter trend trades, but you've got to pick your mark. You've got to have, like here, great angulation, and I won't with this video is perhaps going a bit long today, but notice this angle, and let me quickly draw this up for you. Is notice here, over here, sorry, it's got a small, so where we go, just notice here, price separates. Notice how I've got this angulation away here from the 89, even away from the channel here. Now here your entry, yes, you may have got in here, but as most of my traders know, I won't get in a counter trend trade unless the zero leg confirms for me. So here you may have waited, you may have waited, because usually these you'll get a little pullback as you got here. You may have got in here, you may have got in here, but remember, where's your stop got to go? Okay, a couple of ticks. So you're getting a big stop here, so you may have waited for a secondary entry, but here we've got a higher low. This is what we call a T11 trade. These are a great trade, by the way, where you got a paint bar, plots automatically, and away we go. So another great trading day. It's going to be a lot of, I'd say, well, the volume will really pick up. Please be very, very careful. On the FESX, the European market, we had another great night. All last week, as I mentioned, I was away on vacation last week looking at the markets. It was a fantastic, some of our traders absolutely kicked butt last week. It was brilliant. So the European market, for most people in the US, it's a bit early morning for you. So traders, I'll be doing at least 3 to 4 videos a week. I'll be posting for some of my proprietary traders. We don't put the videos up on YouTube because of our proprietary trading. Some of our setups are proprietary, but if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and look forward to putting together another video with you within the next day. Thank you.